There's a moment, a quiet, trembling moment, when you finally choose to walk away. No screaming. No drama. Just silence. And for the narcissist, that silence is deafening. Because what most people don't realize is, narcissists aren't afraid of conflict. They thrive in it. They aren't afraid of your anger, your tears, your begging, or even your accusations. No, what they truly fear is your indifference. When you stop defending yourself, when you stop explaining, when you stop showing up, that's when their entire illusion starts to crumble. You see, narcissists build their world around control. But not just over your actions. Over your emotions. Your mind. Your reality. As long as you're still trying to make them understand. Still waiting for closure. Still hoping they'll finally see your worth. They win. Because you're still playing. But what happens when you stop playing? What happens when the game ends? Because you simply walk away? That's when the unraveling begins. They'll say you're cold. That you abandoned them. That you were the narcissist all along. They'll twist your truth into something unrecognizable. Because it terrifies them to admit this one truth. You no longer need them. And nothing breaks a narcissist like realizing they are no longer the center of your life. But let me ask you this. What if your silence is the most powerful thing you've ever said? What if walking away wasn't weakness, but the moment you finally reclaimed yourself? Because this video isn't about them anymore. It's about you. Your healing. Your freedom. Your quiet power. So stay with me. We're about to uncover the one thing narcissists cannot survive. And why walking away breaks them like nothing else. What if I told you that the narcissist's greatest fear isn't rejection? It's exposure. You see, narcissists don't build their identity on substance. They build it on perception, on how others see them, how others respond to them. Their entire sense of self is not rooted in truth, but in performance. They curate admiration, not connection. And they feed not on love, but on your reactions. This is the psychology of narcissistic control. And it's not random, it's a survival strategy. Because at their core, narcissists are not secure people. They are deeply, profoundly afraid. But they're not scared of being alone or unloved, they're fearful of being seen. Truly seen. When someone threatens that illusion by questioning them, by walking away, by setting a boundary, something inside them cracks. They panic. Not because they care about you, but because you are holding up the mirror they've been avoiding their entire life. In healthy people, self-worth comes from an internal compass. You can self-correct. You can look at a mistake and say, that was on me. You grow. You repair. You become more whole. But narcissists? They can't afford that honesty. To admit wrongdoing, even once, would unravel everything. Because their identity depends on the belief that they are always right, always in control, always superior. This is why, when you bring something up, something that hurt you, confused you, or even just needs clarity, they respond not with empathy, but with rage, or silence. Or worse, gaslighting. They twist the truth, deny what happened, and shift the blame. They might say, you're too sensitive. Or, you always do this, make me the bad guy. Or, that never happened. You're remembering it wrong. Why? Because they are allergic to accountability. Not because they're incapable of it, but because accountability would require a stable inner self. And that, they never developed. When you ask a narcissist a simple question like, why do you always blame me when things go wrong? You're not just asking for fairness. You're threatening their illusion. You're pulling on the one thread that could unravel their entire facade. And in that moment, something fascinating happens. Watch their reaction. Do they pause, reflect, soften? Or do they double down, escalate, accuse, distract? Their response will tell you everything. Because emotionally healthy people welcome growth, even if it's uncomfortable. But narcissists? They don't grow. They guard. They defend. They destroy. This is also why they fear silence. Not just yours, but their own. When there's no one to reflect their image to them, they start to crumble. Because a narcissist is not a solid person. They are a house of mirrors. And the moment you stop feeding them, they are left with nothing but themselves. And that's the one person they cannot stand. This is the fear beneath the fury. This is why they control. It's not about you. It's about the terror of being exposed for who they truly are, scared, insecure, and deeply disconnected from their own emotions. And the more you grow in emotional regulation, the more you stop reacting to their triggers, the more dangerous you become in their eyes. Because now, you see it. You're no longer under the spell. And they know it. So what happens when you stop playing the game? When do you no longer feed the illusion? They lash out. They retreat. They smear. They love bomb. They guilt trip. They say things like, "No one else will ever love you like I do." Or, "You've changed. You're cold. You used to care." But don't mistake that for connection. It's not about love. It's about manipulation tactics. It's about control. And you're not here to be controlled anymore. The moment you choose clarity over chaos, peace over people-pleasing, self-worth over survival mode, is the moment you become unbreakable. There's a moment in every survivor's journey when things suddenly shift. The fog clears. The pattern becomes visible. And what once felt like love now feels like control. What once felt like passion now tastes like power. And in that moment, when you finally see it for what it is, you take the first breath of something you haven't felt in a long time, emotional freedom. This is the power of going no contact. It's not just a boundary. It's not just self-protection. It's a quiet rebellion. Because for the narcissist, your silence isn't neutral. It's devastating. Why? Because control isn't just what they want. It's what they believe they deserve. And when you withdraw, fully, firmly, without apology, you do something they cannot comprehend. You break the spell. You stop playing your role in their fantasy. You stop reflecting their false image to them. And you remind them, without saying a word, that they are not who they claim to be. Narcissists don't fear being hated. They fear being irrelevant. And nothing says you don't matter here louder than silence. But let's be honest, going no contact isn't easy. You'll second guess. You'll crave closure. You'll miss the highs, the affection, the charm, the attention. Because abuse isn't just painful. It's confusing. That's what makes it so powerful. And so hard to leave. But here's the truth no one tells you. The moment you stop feeding the cycle begins to collapse. The gaslighting loses its grip. The guilt starts to fade. The trauma bond begins to break. And slowly, but powerfully, you start coming back to yourself. Have you ever felt that shift? That moment where silence felt more healing than any apology could? Drop a comment. Your story might give someone else the courage to begin their own no-contact journey. See, narcissists depend on one thing to survive: your attention. Not your love. Not your understanding. Just your attention. Because every reaction, every explanation, every apology, every argument gives them fuel. It tells them, I still have influence. I still matter. I'm still in control. That's why the silent treatment they once weaponized against you becomes their worst fear when it comes from you. Because now, you're the one who disappears. You're the one they can't read. You're the untouchable one. And they hate that. Why? Because it threatens the very foundation of their identity. Without someone to control, they lose their sense of power. Without someone to chase them, they're forced to sit with themselves. And for a narcissist, that's torture. Because beneath the charm, the rage, the manipulation, is a terrifying truth. They don't know who they are without someone else's reflection. And when do you stop reflecting them? They're forced to look in the mirror and face the emptiness they've been running from their entire life. So, no contact doesn't just protect you. It exposes them. It forces them to reckon with the truth that their identity was never stable. That their power was always borrowed. That your love was a mirror, and now it's gone. And here's what often happens. At first, they'll ignore it. Then, they'll mock it. Then, they'll try to break it. Suddenly, you'll receive the text. "I've been thinking about you." Or the guilt bait. "I guess none of it meant anything to you." But stay grounded. That's not love talking. That's supply withdrawal. It's not about your heart, it's about their control. No contact isn't cruelty. It's healing after narcissistic abuse. It's choosing peace over chaos. Clarity over confusion. Self-worth over survival. You don't need a dramatic exit. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need one thing. To remember who you are when no one is trying to rewrite your story. So take that silence. Let it stretch. Let it soften. Let it reveal everything you forgot about yourself while trying to be enough for someone who was never real with you to begin with. Because the real you? She's still in there. Quiet. Waiting. Free. And if you're feeling the pull to break no contact, to reach out, to explain, to go back, pause. Ask yourself this. Is this me, or is this the trauma bond speaking? Because silence might feel lonely. But it's never as lonely as staying in a relationship where your truth is constantly denied. You are not cold. You are not selfish. You are reclaiming your reality. And the ones who matter? They won't need you to shrink to keep their love. They'll meet you where your truth lives, unmasked, untamed, and whole. So stay in your power. No contact isn't the end. It's the beginning. There is a moment in every healing journey that doesn't look like victory, but feels like it. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with applause or validation. It comes in the form of something quiet. Still. Steady. It's called detachment. And for a narcissist? It's checkmate. See, narcissists don't just crave attention, they thrive on emotional reaction. They don't care if it's love, anger, heartbreak, or rage. They just need to know they can move you. Because if they can still control how you feel, they can still control what you believe about them, and more importantly, about yourself. That's why detachment is not indifference. It's not bitterness. It's not cold-hearted. It's emotional regulation. It's choosing to respond from awareness, not from trauma. It's the soft refusal to let someone else write the story of how you show up in the world. Have you ever felt this shift? That quiet power where your peace speaks louder than their provocation? Comment below. Your stillness might inspire someone else to stop dancing in the chaos. Now let's go deeper. When you detach from a narcissist, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you deliver the one consequence they never prepared for. Silence without suffering. Because up until now, the game has always been the same. They trigger you. You react. They twist it. You doubt yourself. They regain control. But when you no longer flinch, when you no longer explain, when your voice stays calm, your eyes are clear, and your boundaries are firm, the game ends. They can't win a game you no longer play. And make no mistake, narcissists are emotional chess players. They test. They bait. They study your patterns, your vulnerabilities, your wounds. They learn how to use your empathy against you, how to twist your search for closure into another open door for manipulation. But when you detach, you stop being a piece on their board. You become the player of your own life. And here's why that's so powerful. Narcissists rely on your emotional investment. It's not your presence that matters to them. It's your reactivity. As long as you're angry, sad, confused, or hurt, they feel connected. In control. Important. That's why even after a breakup, they'll try to keep the thread alive. A random text. A cryptic post. A subtle smear campaign behind your back. Because if they can still trigger you, they can still own a part of you. But when you respond with neutrality, not numbness, but grounded presence, they lose access to your inner world. And that is the real loss they cannot process. They may say, "You're heartless. You've changed. You don't care anymore." But what they mean is, "You're no longer mine to control." And they're right. You've stopped needing their validation to feel worthy. You've stopped interpreting their silence as punishment. You've stopped believing that their approval equals your value. You've outgrown the dynamic. And that's why they panic. Emotional detachment isn't the absence of feeling. It's the presence of clarity. It's standing in the storm and choosing not to be swept up by it. It's hearing their projection, but not receiving it. It's witnessing their gaslighting, and still trusting your truth. It's watching their chaos, and choosing to remain whole. And that's the moment you become unmanipulable. You've shifted from reaction to reflection. From survival to self-worth. From trying to fix it to finally releasing it. And here's something they'll never admit. Your silence hurts more than your screams ever did. Because silence means indifference. And indifference means healing. It means the trauma bond is breaking. It means your nervous system is regulating. It means the hook they've used for years is gone. You no longer need their love to feel lovable. You no longer need their validation to feel valuable. You no longer need their permission to be at peace. And that's emotional checkmate. They have no moves left. Because they cannot harm what no longer reacts. They cannot bait what no longer bites. They cannot twist a truth that no longer needs explaining. So if you're in that space now, detaching, healing, rising, I want you to remember. You are not cold. You are not broken. You are becoming whole. And the ones who truly love you, you won't need to bleed for connection. They'll meet you in clarity, not in chaos. Let them think you've changed. Let them say you're not the same anymore. Because you're not. You've finally come home to yourself. And there is no greater peace than knowing, I no longer need to prove anything to someone who was never really listening. That is the moment the game ends. And your life begins. Most people think that when you walk away from a narcissist, they just move on. But that's the illusion they want everyone, including you, to believe. The truth? Behind closed doors, when the supply is cut off and silence replaces chaos, something begins to unravel, quietly, then violently. Because what collapses isn't just a relationship. It's the narcissist's false self. See, narcissists don't just fear being abandoned. They fear becoming irrelevant. Your absence doesn't just inconvenience them, it exposes them. Exposes the emotional dependency they've spent years masking behind grandiosity. Exposes the shame they buried under control. Exposes the emptiness they hoped you'd never notice. And now that you're gone, there's nothing left to distract them from what they've spent a lifetime avoiding. Themselves. Have you ever seen someone spiral after you stopped engaging, even though they pretended they didn't care? Drop a comment. Your story could be someone else's breakthrough. So, what really happens to a narcissist when you walk away? Let's talk about the internal collapse. To understand this, you have to realize how deeply narcissists rely on what psychology calls narcissistic supply, a constant flow of attention, emotional reaction, admiration, or even conflict. It doesn't matter if it's love or rage, so long as it's about them, it feeds the illusion. But when you go no contact, when your attention, validation, and presence vanish, it initiates a narcissistic injury, a psychological wound that cuts deep into their fragile ego. They experience a total loss of control. And for someone who equates control with identity, that's not just painful. It's devastating. They may appear fine on the surface. They might post pictures, flaunt a new relationship, act as if you never existed. But it's all part of the performance. Because underneath that mask, the storm has begun. Without someone to control, a narcissist is forced to confront a terrifying reality. They don't know who they are. Their entire identity has been built externally, through you. Your emotions. Your reactions. Your need for love. Your attempts to explain yourself. And now that you're gone, they're staring into a mirror that reflects back, nothing. No adoration. No resistance. No fuel. Just the void. And that void? It doesn't whisper. It screams. Narcissists don't have the emotional tools for self-reflection. Their inner world is unregulated, disorganized, and unsafe. That's why they project. That's why they gaslight. That's why they need external regulation, you, to maintain any sense of control. So when the supply is gone, they often spiral. Some implode through anxiety, depression, or rage. Others explode through reckless behavior, sudden obsessions, or even attempts at revenge. But all of them collapse. Some will seek new supply immediately, jumping into a new relationship, love-bombing someone new, appearing healed. But this isn't recovery. It's survival. They're trying to fill the void. But no matter how many people they pull in, nothing sticks, because the one thing they cannot replace is what you represented. Someone who saw behind the mask. And still stayed, for a while. Someone who believed in the possibility of change. Someone who tried. And your absence, your silence, it becomes a mirror they cannot bear to face. Because it says, you saw the truth. And you left anyway. And that shatters everything. What follows is often a desperate attempt to reclaim control, not just over you, but over the story. They might launch a smear campaign. Paint you as unstable. Reach out to your friends. Plant rumors. Why? Because they need to rewrite the narrative. They can't tolerate the idea that you left because of who they are. So they make it about you, your flaws, your abandonment, your emotional instability. It's an attempt to avoid the real collapse. The death of the persona they've spent years curating. But the truth is, they're not angry because you're gone. They're angry because you didn't come back. They're not heartbroken over the loss. They're heartbroken over the lack of control. They thought they could hoover you back in. They thought your trauma bond would keep you tethered. They thought your guilt, your empathy, your hope, would pull you back into the loop. But it didn't. And in that moment, they're forced to accept what they never imagined. You are no longer theirs. You have reclaimed your self-worth. You have regulated your nervous system. You have ended the toxic relationship not with revenge, but with release. That is a collapse they cannot recover from. And yes, they will try to replace you. But deep down, they'll remember. The one who saw them fully. And refused to be controlled. That memory? It haunts them. Not because they loved you. But because you saw the truth, and you walked away anyway. That is the moment the narcissist's illusion dies. Not with a scream. But with a silence that echoes louder than any word. So if you're still wondering whether your absence matters. It does. It matters more than you know. Because when you walk away with clarity and peace, you don't just leave them behind. You leave them without power. And that is the collapse they never thought would come. There is a moment that comes after silence. After no contact. After the smear campaigns fade, and the chaos dies down. A moment where the dust settles, not just outside of you, but inside. It's the moment you realize. You survived. But even more than that, you're free. And now, you begin again. Not as someone who was broken, but as someone who was reborn. Have you ever felt this shift, when the pain transformed into clarity? If so, tell us in the comments. You never know who you might help by speaking your truth. Because here's the truth, they never expected. They tried to control you, gaslight you, make you question your self-worth, your memories, even your sanity. They tried to convince you that you were too emotional, too difficult, too broken to ever stand on your own. But you did. And now, you're walking into something they could never give you. A life rooted in emotional regulation, not chaos. A sense of inner peace, not fear. A deep connection to who you are, not who someone else needed you to be. This is the part narcissists never talk about. Because they don't want you to know how powerful you become when you leave. Not angry. Not bitter. But healed. Because healing is the one thing they could never take from you. They could manipulate your mind, disregard your boundaries, exploit your empathy. But they could never own your soul. And now, every step you take forward is a reclamation. Of your time. Of your truth. Of your nervous system. Of your future. You're no longer living in reaction. You're choosing what matters. Maybe it's reconnecting with your passions. Or rediscovering laughter that isn't laced with anxiety. Maybe it's building friendships that don't require performance. Or finally hearing your own voice, and realizing it's powerful, and calm, and enough. And yes, some days will still hurt. Because healing isn't linear. Sometimes, memories will surface. You'll hear echoes of old accusations. You're the problem. You'll never find better. No one else will love you like I do. But now, you know better. Now, you recognize those words as what they truly were. Control tactics, not truth. And when those thoughts show up, you breathe. You pause. You speak gently to the part of you that once believed them. And then? You keep walking forward. Because you're no longer asking permission to exist. You're no longer waiting for validation from someone addicted to their own reflection. You've reclaimed your mirror. And what do you see now? It's you. Not their version of you. This is where real freedom begins. When you start creating instead of reacting. When you speak without fear of being punished. When you make choices from alignment, not obligation. When love becomes safe again. Not performative. Not conditional. But true. And here's what's even more beautiful. You don't just become stronger for yourself. You become a light for others still stuck in the storm. You become the friend who recognizes manipulation. The parent who teaches emotional regulation. The partner who knows how to build boundaries with love. The advocate who can say, I was there. And I made it out. And you can too. Because in every healed survivor, there is a quiet revolution happening. A reclaiming of narratives. A restoration of self-trust. A refusal to carry shame that was never yours to begin with. And that is the one thing narcissists can never undo. No matter how loudly they scream. No matter how many lies they spread. No matter how many times they try to re-enter your life. Because you don't live there anymore. You don't live in their illusion. You live in truth. You live in peace. You live in you. And if no one has told you this today, let me be the first. You're doing the work. You're rebuilding a self they could never break. And that is beautiful. If this video spoke to something inside you. If you found healing, hope, or clarity here. Don't keep it to yourself. Hit like, share it with someone who needs it. And click subscribe to stay connected with this journey. At Unmasking Personality, we don't just talk about narcissism. We talk about freedom. We reclaim narratives. We build community. We teach you how to trust yourself again. Because the truth is, You were never too broken. You were simply too powerful for someone who couldn't hold your light. And now? You're free.